All right, so it's late over here in JSNP 4 land, and I know it's Monday. People could be waking up. Man, where's my snip, man? Where's my snip news? Um, Remember how Cliff High been always telling us through his webbot and stuff, watch the Italians, their banks. Banks, of course, got bailed out. This one merged with that one. Just an absolute nightmare again. Well, they're too big to fail. Same excuse. But then a, quote unquote right wing government took over Italy not too long ago. And they're not fans of the deep state, the European Union, the European Central Bank. And I see this interesting article from Zero Hedge. It belongs to the people, not the bankers. Italy moves to seize gold from central bank? What? Why all of a sudden? Why is Russia and all them buying all this gold all of a sudden? They've been buying like crazy recently. 2 weeks ago, somewhat out of the blue, ECB President Mario Draghi issued an odd statement confirming that the European Central Bank needs to approve any operation in the foreign reserves of Eurozone countries, including gold and large foreign currency holdings. The ECB shall approve both the operations and foreign reserve assets remaining with the NCBs, national central banks, and member states' transactions with their foreign exchange working balances above a certain threshold. The purpose of this competence is to ensure consistency with the exchange rate and monetary policy of the union. Specifically, Draghi made this statement to 2 Italian members of the European Parliament. At that time, it did not seem notable for any reason other than its peculiar timing, but now things are starting to make more sense as the Wall Street Journal reports that Italy's ruling populists pushed ahead this week with efforts to seize control of the central bank and its gold reserves. Isn't this interesting? Complaining that hundreds of thousands of small individual investors lost billions of dollars after several Italian banks failed in recent years. Again, Webbot warned us well in advance, by the way. So those investors, you had a Webbot in your back pocket, you might have been okay. Why? Because I've got a Webbot report in my pocket, in the other hand's giving a high five. Let's continue, shall we? Anyways, complaining that hundreds of thousands of small individual investors lost billions of dollars after several Italian banks failed in recent years, the anti-establishment, 5-Star Movement, and the Nationalist League depict the central bank as a symbol of technocratic elite aloof from the needs of ordinary citizens. That sounds like a Trump kind of a thing. Isn't it funny that those leaders of the Italian government were actually being called like the Trump of the Eurozone when they were taking power? I remember seeing some stuff like that where the people were referring them as the Trump, of their side, which is good. We need a change, of course, at the Bank of Italy if we think about what happened in the last years, said Deputy Prime Minister Luigi. It's me, Luigi Di Maio, leader of the 5-Star Movement. 5-Star and the League have repeatedly attacked the Bank of Italy for not preventing the banking crisis and blamed it for the losses suffered by mom-and-pop savers who had bought bank shares and bonds. If you are here with your current account in the red, it's because the people who were supposed to control things didn't do so. He said, that was the League's leader, Interior Minister Matteo Salvini. You gotta say it like an Italian. Lavini. Bertolli. No, I think I'll still rather eat out at a restaurant than eat your, pre-processed food that's, frozen in the grocery store. Bertolli. Get out of here with that nonsense commercial. And this week saw Italian lawmakers from 5-Star asking Parliament to pass 2 draft laws. This is the interesting part. One law would instruct the central bank's owners, most of them private banks, to sell their shares to the Italian Treasury, here's the kicker, at prices from the 1930s. See, over here in America, we had $20 gold. You must turn in your gold. You have to turn in your gold. It's illegal to own gold. Turn it in, we're going to give you $20. Okay. Shortly after that, it's worth $35. But you can't own it. Central bank got it. See how that worked? And now what's gold worth? Is it worth $20 or $35? Hell no. It's bouncing between $1,300 and $1,400. So all it takes, since a law, like on our shores in America, 1913, the law created the Federal Reserve, and let them be their own little entity. But they stole our gold basically, and they got it for $35 an ounce, basically. I mean, we got paid 20, but they get it at 35 basically is what it's worth. So, since a law created it, we could create a law right here in this country that says, oh yeah, we're gonna undo that, and all the gold the central bank has, that the relic that Ben Bernanke had said was that's just a tradition that we do that. Why don't you do diamonds or pearls or something? Well, just tradition. And isn't it interesting that they slipped in recently Basel III rules, which now says gold is a tier 1 asset. That means debts can be settled from country to country, central bank to central bank. No real breaking news about it, just all of a sudden under the radar, it's now a tier 1 asset. Shouldn't gold have been a freaking tier 1 asset forever and never allowed to not be one? See how they play with you? So anyways, they're saying in Italy, we're going to buy back those shares from the private banks. You're going to sell them, since the private banks have all these ownership shares in the central bank. Which again, our central bank, this Federal Reserve, is a privately owned organization. And yes, it is also basically owned by our private banks, the big JP Morgans and those guys. But you can't look at that because that information is secret and sealed. And when they created that deal, they made sure you will never ever find out who the actual owners are. What's the big deal, right? What's the big deal if this is such a good thing to have? Well, because when you find out who got bailed out, it was all the owners of the central bank. And like them, those people, you got screwed and they didn't. Anyway, so that's one thing they're dealing with. So okay, just create a law. Done. It's that simple. Create a law. Have a nice day. The other law would declare that the Italian people to be the owners. It would declare them to be the owners of the Bank of Italy's reserve of 2,451.8 metric ton. He weighs, fat bastard weighs a metric ton. How about 2,451.8 metric tons of gold worth around $102 billion. I'm starting to like this government in Italy a lot. It reminds me of a guy named Trump. Now, whoa, Trump's not saying that, I know. But just give him a little time. Maybe it'll take you to a second term until he starts dealing with that vampire squid extraordinaire. Now, I'm not talking about Goldman Sachs this time. I'm talking about the Federal Reserve. The gold belongs to the Italians, not to the bankers, said Giorgia Meloni, leader of the Brothers of Italy, a far-right opposition party that supports both bills. We are ready to battle everywhere in Italy and to bring Italians to the streets if necessary. The establishment sees it differently, warning that their actions are an attempt to undermine, or not, there's no D, I said undermined. There's no D at the end of that word. Can we try that again? Central bank is, well, the establishment really, is saying those actions are an attempt to undermine the Bank of Italy's independence. And haven't we heard that word here too in America? The Fed has to be left alone, let them have their independence. And Ron Paul tried. Audit the Fed, failed Congress. But that's because a bunch of deep staters were running it. And they're going to be dealt with. Some of them already have. So we get the right people in there, we might just have us an audit the Fed moment. And then maybe we can figure out where that money that Catherine Austin Fitz says is missing. Oh, the Fed can point. Oh, the DOD can't figure it out. The Pentagon can't figure it out, but the Fed can, because that's where it came from. Imagine that. But as the Wall Street Journal points out, the five-star movement and the league support public ownership of the gold reserves, and with backing from parties comprising of 60% of lawmakers, the draft law actually has enough support to pass. Lawmakers from Five Star also supported nationalizing the central bank. Let me just put this fun. Let me just give a little. Dave, can I get a little clap in the background? Thank you. See? Ladies and gentlemen, sexual Italians. Anyways, as of last week, they had forced the creation of a parliamentary commission to look into the failure of Italian banks, launching what could be months of tense scrutiny. Is it any wonder Russia and China, why they have started to hoard gold? Is it because they love gold? Or do they see the writing on the wall? Like we've been saying, I've been following that stuff for a long time. Why is Russia and China just buying like they're madmen? Because maybe they know something was coming in the future when this whole debt system blows up and they want to be on the right side of it, right? So anyways, take care.